This is World Teachers Day. So let's hear it for all the teachers. And all the educators. So my plate awaits. It's going to be short. If you don't know this man, you haven't been paying attention. His name is Hamm. He is the founder and chair of the People's Organization for Progress, known as POP. He holds the distinction he holds the distinction of being the youngest school board member in the country, still, at his not so young anymore age, but he is still pumping hard, being 2 and 3 places at once. POP, if you don't know, is a grassroots social justice organization, everywhere, anytime, all at once. Every Monday, we're in front of the Federal Building right down on Broad Street for Justice Mondays. We have Saturday Empowerment, encouraging voter registration and POP membership on Broad and Market, most Saturdays from 3 to 5. We've been involved in fights in South Jersey, the issue of police brutality. Families have come to POP for counsel and encouragement and support, and we've given the best we could. I am a member of POP, proud member of POP. One of the standing issues is the CCRB, Community Relations Board, that is stuck in the Senate. So again, your vote, your pressure on these legislators to do the right thing is imperative. So without further ado, because he got other places to be, but we're glad he could take a few minutes to join us. I believe he just came from Rutgers. As you know, they're meeting at Robeson Center, the Board of Governors, on some issues very pertinent to Rutgers. Won't go into that. I give you the fabulous Larry Hamm. Get ready to rock.
Thank you, Diane. This one working? Can you hear me? Good afternoon. Power to the people. Y'all can do better than that. Power to the people. I'm so glad to be here with you. And first, before I say anything else, let me salute the Black Issues Convention, observing its 41st anniversary, 41 years. Founded by the late chairman, City Councilman Donald Tucker. And let me give a personal salute to the current helmswoman of the New Jersey Black Issues Convention, a woman for whom I have the utmost respect, the current president, Reva Foster. Give her a big hand. I seem to be surrounded wherever I go by strong Black women. And I want to salute the Black women that have kept the Black liberation movement going for the last 60 years. I saw my friend, she was sitting there, she's always busy, the current president of the Newark branch of the NAACP, Sister Deborah Smith Gregory. Give her a big hand. Now, I could stand here all day long, but there's one more person at least. I probably need to recognize 20 more, but there's one more that I need to recognize. And if I had to identify the strongest ally of the People's Organization for Progress in the New Jersey State Legislature, I would have to say that is Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. Give her a big hand. So I hope no one else will feel offended if I didn't recognize you, but if I stand here recognizing people all day, my time will be up. But I'm glad to be here with you this afternoon to say a few words. And I'll try not to talk too long, but the theme of today's gathering is, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the theme for today is for us to gain unity, survival, and progress. Is that the theme for today? Unity, everybody say it, unity. Say it again, unity, survival, and progress. That's an appropriate theme in these challenging times in which we live. Because the truth of the matter is that we wouldn't be here today if it was not for the unity and the struggle of our people. If it was not for people whose names you don't even recognize. Because many of the names of the people who struggled and fought and sacrificed prosperity, sacrificed career, sacrificed their safety, and sacrificed even their lives. Many of their names are not in the history book. You know Dr. King's name. You know Malcolm X's name. You might know some other names. But the truth of the matter is that we wouldn't be in this university. Many of us would not have the degrees that we have, live in the homes we live in today, or work the jobs that we're currently on if it had not been for some black people who fought to kick those doors open so that, in fact, we could enjoy those benefits. This is something we must never forget. And too often we forget it. I often encounter people who are pretty puffed up about themselves. And this is not to say that we don't recognize individual initiative and ambition or individual accomplishment. But the truth of the matter is that no one invited us to the shores of North America. No one invited us with open arms in this country. How did we come here, brothers and sisters? We came here as enslaved people. And we were enslaved for nearly 4 centuries on the North American continent. And we did not get free by the beneficence and goodwill of people. We got free because people like Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey and Harriet Tubman and Gabriel Prosser fought and died so that we could be free. We would not be free had there not been a civil war in this country. And you hear a lot about civil war today, don't you? It seems like we are reliving this thing all over again. Do you know that in 1860, the most profitable business in the United States, more profitable than banking and more profitable than industry was the investment in slavery. This country is the richest, most powerful country in the world today. How did it get that way? From the stolen labor of our ancestors. That's how it got this way. And I hope on the agenda today is the just demand that African Americans have for reparations for the enslavement of our ancestors here in the United States. Some of y'all walk around here talking about they don't owe us nothing. They owe us everything. The more I learn, the more I know that. The more I learn, the more I know that. So we had to struggle to get out of slavery. And the unity of our people was hard to even, we talk about how hard it is today. How hard was it for our ancestors who had the chains and shackles on their hands and feet? How hard was it for them? They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have fax machines. They didn't have laptop computers. But what they had was unity, and that's what we need today, black people. We need unity today. And then for another 100 years, we had to fight against Jim Crow segregation. And many of us in this room are old enough to remember Jim Crow, apartheid in America. And I'm going to tell you something, I'm sure other people have addressed it. Jim Crow wasn't just in Alabama and Mississippi and North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. Jim Crow was right here in New Jersey. New Jersey was the slave state of the North. Slavery was here in New Jersey. See, and it's unfortunate that they don't teach this in the school. That's why we must demand that the Amistad Law be obeyed by every school district in New Jersey. You know what Amistad is? Amistad bill passed says that every school, public school in this state, must teach black history. This was a Dutch colony founded in 1620. By 1625, African people were here. Our ancestors were here in New Jersey, clearing forests, building roads, building houses, building dams, laying the infrastructure. And not only was slavery here, but there was an incentive for enslavement. Do you know that colonists could get 160 acres of land for every person that they enslaved? Did you know that? Follow New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, and you can get information on that. New Jersey was the last state to abolish slavery in the North. In fact, it never abolished it. It never passed the 13th Amendment. At the end of the Civil War, you needed 27 states. New Jersey wasn't in that 27 state majority. So we had to fight against slavery here. We had to fight against Jim Crow. Who's in here old enough to remember Colored People Night at Olympic Park in Irvington? See, there's some people, and see, some of y'all didn't know that, right? That there was an amusement park in New Jersey called Olympic Park. It wasn't in South Jersey. It wasn't in Central Jersey. It was in Irvington, New Jersey. And at a certain point, black people could only come on the night designated for us, right here in New Jersey. How many people old enough in here to remember when there was segregated seating in movie theaters in downtown Newark? We couldn't sit in the mezzanine. We had to sit in the balcony. If you came downtown, Miss Harris, and you went to a bank, there were no black tellers in the 1950s. No, there was a movement to change that. I went to South 17th Street School in Newark. I didn't have a black teacher until the 8th grade. And that was 1967, during the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, at one time, there were so few black teachers in Newark, they had an organization called the Organization of Negro Educators that was fighting to get black teachers in the Newark public schools. So we had to fight to change that. And today, we got black everything, right? Blackety black, as they say. We got black mayors, black city councilmen, black police chiefs, black fire department chiefs, black judges. How did that happen? That didn't happen by magic. We had to fight. We had to struggle to make that happen. We were just talking at the table a minute ago. There was a black and Puerto Rican convention here in Newark in 1969. And out of that came the community choice ticket with Mayor Gibson, Kenneth Gibson as mayor, Dennis Westbrook, Central Ward, Sharp James, South Ward. And we ended political apartheid in Newark in 1970. And we have had more than 40 years of black power in Newark and in other municipalities around this state. But something has been happening. Something very disheartening has been happening. We have been losing our foothold in many places. There are cities that had black mayors that no longer have black mayors. There are cities that had a majority black city council that no longer have a majority black city council. And in some sense, it's because of demographic changes, but in another sense, it's because many of us have fallen asleep. Many of us have become complacent. Many of us have become very comfortable. But I'm here to tell you today, don't get too comfortable, because those things that you have today, you may not have them tomorrow. Don't get too comfortable. I have lived long enough, and you have lived long enough to see the very things that we struggled and fought for are being taken from us right in front of our very eyes. Right in front of our eyes. We've had Supreme Court decisions that have all but eliminated the Civil Rights Act. Supreme Court decisions that have eviscerated the Voting Rights Act. We saw just a month ago a decision to eliminate affirmative action in colleges and universities. I say to you that by next fall, we are going to see a decline in black enrollment on our colleges and universities. But that's not the thing that disappoints me the most. What disappoints me the most is that these decisions were made and there was hardly a peep out of our community. How could they take affirmative action? Like people walking around here, I don't need affirmative action. If it wasn't affirmative action, you wouldn't have that job. I don't need no, if it wasn't for, my mother was a seamstress at the Hoffmanizing Cleaners on 16th Avenue. Y'all know what a seamstress is? That's the lady that sew your clothes. My father was a truck driver. Could they have sent me to Princeton University? No. Princeton didn't even accept no black people. They wouldn't even accept Paul Robeson. No, there was a movement that opened up opportunities for us, and we have a responsibility to make sure those opportunities are available for those generations that come behind us. People walking around here, protests don't do nothing. Are you crazy? Just because you didn't protest, and some of you are guilty because you've reaped the benefit of protest without protesting. I ain't going to the protest for jobs. Then when the job program open up, you the first in line. I ain't going to protest for Black history. Then you call me up talking about they eliminating the Black Studies program at my child's school. Brothers and sisters, our struggle is a multidimensional struggle. We have to use all the tools that are available to us. We have to use our vote. We have to use our dollars. Why are we patronizing companies that are funding this right-wing racist movement in this country right now? You got to hold back your dollars. Many of these corporations give to the same politicians that are trying to roll back the progress we've made. We should use our dollars. We should have boycotts and economic initiatives. But we should also protest. How you gonna be a member of the NAACP and never go to a protest? How you gonna be a member of the Black Issues Convention and never been to a protest? I like protests. Look, when I'm too old to walk and I'm in the White House nursing home up there in Orange, and y'all know it's my last day, I want James Harris to come get me, put me in the wheelchair, and roll me down to the demonstration, because I want to die on the picket line. I want to die on the battlefield. I don't want to go out here with a whimper, go out here and nobody even know I left, and I might have a rock in my hand too. For our survival, we're catching hell today. We're catching hell today. Just because some of you don't feel it don't mean the masses of people are not catching hell. You comfortable. You got your single family home up there somewhere. You got your BMW and your Lexus and your Mercedes. You comfortable. But down here in the valley, we catching hell. And I'm telling you, a lot of brothers and sisters that are up on the hill better be careful. Because a lot of y'all are fronting for the powers that are oppressing us. Soon as we start protesting, they send somebody black out. The Republicans trying to undo 100 years of social progress. Who do they go get? Tim Scott. The biggest beneficiary of affirmative action is on the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas leading the fight to undo affirmative action. Clarence Thomas should be impeached today. People are catching hell. Do you know there's an eviction tsunami? People are being literally put in the street. Because why? Because the rent is too damn high. And gentrification is running over us in our communities. Some of us can't even afford to live in some of these new apartments that are being built. We fought for the right to vote. Do you know that they have introduced 550 50 bills to limit our right to vote. It's so deep now that they're trying to remove black history. Some of us took black history for granted. Some of us like, well, I don't want my kids to take black history. I want them to take STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. They can't do both. You can't have STEM and your culture. I'm telling you, if we surrender our history and our culture, we will be deaf, dumb, and blind. That's all we need to do, is train a generation of technocrats that have no connection to their people. Down there in Florida. But don't look at Florida. Look right up the hill here at Seton Hall University. Seton Hall tried to eliminate the Black Studies program. Did you hear about it? The students at Seton Hall protested. They saved the Black Studies program at Seton Hall University, the young people. See, and what y'all need to do, listen, it's far be it from me to tell you what you need to do, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You need to find out who those students are and give them some awards. You come up here and give awards to students that ain't never did anything in the community. They got good grades, and yes, we should want our kids to get good grades. But we should demand more than that. We should demand, many of you were active in your college black student organizations. Many of you were active as high school students. That's how I came to be a school board member. The students who are standing up for us on the battlefield, we need to recognize them and give them awards and give them scholarships and let them know that we thank them for their effort. And I'm going to tell you something else. Speaking of college, this country is rich enough to provide a free college education to every young person that wants to go to college. And if we have $300 billion for war in Ukraine, billions to bail out banks, billions to bail out the auto industry, we can cancel all student debt in this country. This country hasn't raised the federal minimum wage in 13 years. The federal minimum wage right now is $7.25. That's a slave wage. You can't pay rent anywhere in America on $7.25 an hour. And the people are catching hell on $100,000. You know what they're doing on $27,000 and $57,000 and $87,000. Do you know, tell me when I need to sit down, Reva. Tell me when I need to sit down. Do you know that in this country, listen, are y'all listening to me? Listen, do you know that in this country, in the last 40 years, we have had the greatest upward redistribution of wealth in the history of humanity? In the last 40 years, there's been an upward redistribution to the top 1%, listen to this figure, of $50 trillion. Do y'all know what a trillion is? Do y'all know what a million is? Do y'all know what a billion is? A billion, listen, a billion is 1,000 million. And a trillion is 1,000 billion. Why? Because of 40 years of tax breaks to the rich. Why? Because of 40 years of holding down wages. Do you know people are actually have less buying power with the money they have today than their parents had with the money they have? So between the tax breaks, between subsidies to industry, between the artificial suppression of wages, we've seen a redistribution of wealth, but to the top 1%. This is why our colleges don't have enough money. This is why our cities don't have enough money. This is why we're closing libraries. This is why hospitals are being closed. This is why the federal government doesn't have enough money to fund daycare centers. Because we won't impose. See, all y'all run around here and talk about Martin Luther King in January. If you really knew Dr. King, you would be saying different things. Because Dr. Martin Luther King said we need a radical redistribution of power and wealth in the United States of America. I love Martin Luther King. I love Malcolm X too. I love them equally. But you know what I like about Dr. King? Dr. King left us an intellectual legacy. Dr. King wrote 6 books: Measure of a Man, Stride Toward Freedom, Strength to Love, Why We Can't Wait, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, and Trumpet of Conscience. See, with Dr. King, you don't have to guess. You can go to what he said. But the thing I want to do is challenge you in this room now. I want to ask, what school, what high school, what middle school, what elementary school requires one, just one, of Dr. King's books to be read by its students? Not one. Why even have a King holiday if the young people don't know the ideas for which Dr. King fought and died? But this is our challenge, to move beyond talk to action. If you applaud when I say that, then I expect you, when you leave this hall, to go home and call your principal and say, which one of Dr. King's books are required in our school? See, we got to get to action. We got to get to action. Got to get to action. We want to talk. I was on a show last night. Somebody tell me when my time is up. I don't want to be a bad guest. I was on a show last night. Talking about how terrible it is. How terrible it is that we have all this violence in our community. Yes, it's terrible. But it's turning into some kind of strange violence pornography, where we talk about how many died and how many mass shootings we've had and how many guns there are in the community. I know all that. I want to know, what are you going to do about it? That's what I want to know. Like, just for instance, how come our black-owned and black-oriented radio stations can't have public service announcements with the mothers of some of those that have been killed to go on the radio and say, hey, we need to calm it down in our community? How come we can't have the president declare a national day of mourning and reflection for those who have been killed, who are the victims of gun violence? I want to know who of us will demand that our congressperson implement a bill to make gun manufacturers liable for the damage the weapons they produce actually are having in our community. If they could hold the Sackler family accountable for the damage that their opium-based products have had in our community, then the families that own Remington and Colt and Westchester should also be held accountable in the same way. So let me sit down. For us to gain unity, survival, and progress, I am sometimes discouraged, but I can't give up. We can't give up. Our ancestors didn't give up on us. We can't give up on each other. Black people, I'm here to tell you, if I don't tell you anything else before I leave this Black Issues Convention, I want to tell you that we are a great people. Despite whatever problems we have, we are a great people. We are people that have given civilization to humanity. We are people that have birthed great empires. We are people that gave mathematics and science and architecture and engineering and chemistry and art and music to mankind. Black people, don't be discouraged. We have within us the power to change our condition. We have in our hands the power. Put aside the petty differences. What difference does it make? You Christian, Muslim, I'm Buddhist. We all catching hell. All the people catching hell need to get together and fight together for a better world. Power to the people. Thank you very much.